Expand your vocabulary with our core 2,000 words ebook. It's free and packed with essential expressions that you'll use on a daily basis. Start building your vocabulary today. Click the link in the description below to download your free Japanese ebook before it's gone. Hi, welcome to Introduction to Japanese. My name is Alicia, and I'm joined by...
Hi everyone, I'm Risa. In this series, you learn everything you need to know to get started learning Japanese.
That's right, and we're here to help guide you through your journey. In this lesson, you'll learn the reasons you should start learning a new language, why you should learn Japanese in particular, and how to get started.
Let's begin with the most obvious question: why learn a new language?
There are countless reasons, but perhaps the biggest one of all is that it could actually change your life. Learning a new language unlocks new pathways that are off limits to you now. There are certain things that you simply cannot do without having the technical or cultural skills that come from learning a new language.
Like working or living in another country.
Knowing another language provides you with greater job opportunities. You have the freedom to move to another country halfway around the world and earn a living, or even better yet, build a career from it, instead of just being stuck in one place. Language allows you to visit or live in places that you may never have even considered going simply because that wasn't a possibility for you. Knowing another language simply gives you more options to choose from.
And learning a new language also helps you to be more open-minded and see the world from a new perspective.
Language and culture go hand in hand. The world is a big place, and by broadening your understanding of other cultures, it allows you to be more empathetic and understanding of the many different ways that people live their lives. With language, you're able to see and experience more, which helps you to grow as a person.
Learning a new language also improves your memory.
Several studies have consistently shown that those who study another language have improved memory as opposed to those who didn't learn another language. Learning another language also keeps your brain healthy by significantly delaying the onset of Alzheimer's and dementia. This difference can be as much as 4 to 5 more years of quality life.
And those are just some of the reasons you should learn another language. The list just goes on and on.
Now you know the benefits of studying another language, but why should you learn Japanese in particular?
Have you ever heard of Pokemon, Mario, or PlayStation? Well, they all came from Japan.
Japanese pop culture is huge. Many of the animations, comics, and games that are loved by people from all over the world were created in Japan. Not everything gets translated either, so unless you know Japanese, you're missing out on a lot of amazing things that Japanese pop culture has to offer.
And what about the fact that Japan is the third largest economy in the world?
Japan has one of the largest electronic goods industries in the world and is the world's third largest automobile manufacturer. It's also one of the highest ranked countries in terms of innovation. Knowing Japanese opens up many business opportunities. And knowledge of the language, of Japanese culture, their work ethic, and business etiquette can go a very long way in the world of business. Oftentimes, it could even make or break an important business deal. Knowing Japanese then will put you ahead of the pack.
Japan has one of the fastest growing tourism sectors in Asia. And actually, Japan will be hosting the 2020 Summer Olympics in Tokyo.
We should add that the majority of the Japanese population can't speak English, so if you're planning on making a few friends in Japan, being able to speak at least some Japanese will get you a long way. There are many World Heritage sites for you to see and enjoy in Japan. Perhaps the most famous one of all, an absolute icon of Japan, is Mount Fuji, the highest mountain in Japan.
Another spot that I really like is Himeji Castle. It's one of the finest examples of Japanese architecture during the period of feudal Japan.
Japan has a colorful history that spans thousands of years. The feudal period of Japan, the age of the samurai, lasted for nearly a millennium. Most notably, the country saw an unprecedented 250 years of peace and prosperity, giving rise to artistic, cultural, and social development, all of which you can see and enjoy in museums across Japan today.
So clearly, there are many reasons why you should learn Japanese.
Okay then, we've talked about why you should start learning a language and why you should start learning Japanese, but how should they get started, Risa?
Well, it's as simple as learning your first word in Japanese and building up from there.
The good news, though, is that you already know some Japanese.
Sushi, samurai, karaoke.
These are words that have made their way into English, but the reverse is also true. Many English words have also made their way into Japanese.
Ice cream, ビール, butter.
In fact, 10% of all Japanese words used today come from English. This means that you already know a little more than 10% of all the words that exist in Japanese.
Let's teach you something that you might not know, but is very useful. Arigato. It means thank you in Japanese.
That's a useful phrase. Can you explain a little bit about what these characters are, though?
Sure. That's actually the Japanese writing system called kana. And it's not as hard as it looks. Japanese doesn't use alphabetical letters in its writing system like English does. Instead, we use a set of characters called kana. You can think of each character as a syllable. A, ri, ga, to, u.
You'll learn the Japanese writing system eventually, but for now, let's put up some romanization to help get you started.
This romanization is called romaji, and it allows you to read Japanese before you become familiar with Japanese characters.
That certainly makes things much easier to learn. Well, okay then. Now listen and repeat after Risa.
Arigato.
Now you try.
Arigato.
Your turn again.
Arigato.
Well done. Now you know how to say thank you in Japanese. We've covered a lot of things already, so why don't we wrap up the first lesson and recap on what we've learned. In this lesson, you learned that studying another language has many benefits, such as providing new job and business opportunities. Japan has a colorful history with many things for you to see and learn, and to say thank you in Japanese, it's
Arigato.
In the next lesson, we're going to demystify Japanese pronunciation by taking a look at the sounds of Japanese. So be sure to watch the next video. See you in the next lesson. Bye!
Bye.
Hi! Welcome to Introduction to Japanese. My name is Alicia, and I'm joined by...
Hi everyone, I'm Risa.
In this lesson, you'll learn the basics of Japanese pronunciation. Pronunciation refers to the manner in which a word is spoken, so don't focus on reading what's on screen. Instead, focus on listening and repeating. Japanese is what is called a mora-timed language. What this simply means is that every character in Japanese, which you can think of as a syllable, occupies the same length of time.
すみません。すみません。
Notice how each character is pronounced for an equal amount of time?
すみません。
No character takes up more or less time than the other characters. Every character is valued equally and is pronounced evenly throughout.
すみません。
English, on the other hand, is a stress-timed language. Syllables that are stressed are valued greater than syllables that are unstressed. Opportunity. The stressed syllable to in opportunity is deemed more important, so it's pronounced longer than all other syllables. Listen to it again. Opportunity. This gives English a machine gun-like rhythm, where the pace is sometimes fast and at other times slow. One last time. Opportunity. Compare this once again with Japanese, which is steady and even throughout.
すみません。
Because equal value is given to each character, there is no word stress in Japanese. When pronouncing Japanese words, try to imagine a constant stream of syllables flowing out from your mouth. There are 5 characters in Japanese that signify a vowel sound.
あ、い、う、え、お。
Apart from these 5 characters, all other characters, except for one that we will cover shortly, is made up of a consonant sound and one of these vowel sounds.
か、き、く、け、こ、さ、し、す、せ、そ、た、ち、つ、て、と。
And so on. Only this character here is kind of special. It's a consonant sound without a vowel sound.
ん、
So to recap, a Japanese character could be a vowel,
あ、
or more commonly made up of one consonant and one vowel,
か、
or it could just be this consonant sound on its own.
ん。
Now you know the possible sounds that make up a Japanese character, but let's look at all the sounds in Japanese collectively. In the previous lesson, you realized that you already know 10% of all words in Japanese, which is a miracle. But are you also aware that you already know roughly 80% of all sounds in Japanese too? That means that if you were to simply imitate a Japanese speaker, your pronunciation would be correct roughly 80% of the time. For example, listen and repeat after Risa.
Wasabi. Wasabi.
Chances are your pronunciation was pretty spot on. The W, S, and B sounds are practically identical to English. The sounds may be the same, but don't forget that Japanese isn't a stress-timed language like English. So instead of stressing the second syllable like wasabi, make it even throughout. Try again.
Wasabi. Wasabi.
Nearly all sounds in Japanese are identical to English, like the W, S, and B sounds in this example. Since you already know how to pronounce most of these sounds, we only need to pay attention to the handful of sounds that are completely new to you. They're the ones we need to look out for. In the previous lesson, we taught you how to say thank you in Japanese. Do you remember what it was? It's...
ありがと
This word is often romanized like this. Focus on the second character. It's often written as an R and an I, but don't be fooled. This character isn't pronounced using an English R sound at all.
う。り。
It's like a mixture between an R and an L sound.
り。
There's no such sound in English, but most people would transcribe this using the letter R because that's the closest equivalent there is in English. Pronouncing it like an English R, however, would be a huge mistake. To pronounce this sound, lightly tap the gum ridge behind your upper teeth with the tip of your tongue. It should be a quick, striking motion, similar to the sensation you get when pronouncing the T in words like butter, cutter, and so on. Don't roll your tongue like an English R. Most of the air should go around the sides of your tongue, the same way it would when pronouncing an L sound. This is why many people describe this sound as in between an R and an L sound. Listen and repeat after Risa.
り。り。ありがとう。ありがとう。
Well done! Let's wrap up this lesson by recapping what we've learned. In this lesson, you learn that Japanese is a mora-timed language, where syllables are pronounced for an equal amount of time. Japanese characters can represent a single vowel sound, a consonant and a vowel, or a single consonant sound. Collectively, nearly all the sounds in Japanese are identical to the sounds in English, and there are only a handful of new sounds that you need to learn. We've covered only the basics of Japanese pronunciation. If you're interested in learning more, check out the entire course we created named The Ultimate Guide to Japanese Pronunciation. In that course, we cover and break down every single sound in the Japanese language, showing you mouth and tongue positioning and giving you tips to help you perfect your Japanese pronunciation. In the next lesson, we'll introduce you to the basics of Japanese grammar, where you'll learn about Japanese word order and how to build basic phrases in Japanese. See you in the next lesson. Bye!
Bye!
Hi! Welcome to Introduction to Japanese. My name is Alicia, and I'm joined by...
Hi everyone, I'm Risa.
In this lesson, you'll learn the basics of Japanese grammar. Word order refers to the order in which words are structured to form a sentence in a given language. Consider the English sentence, I ate an apple. But first, let's remove the article an here for simplicity, so we're just left with I ate apple. The basic word order for English is subject, verb, object, or SVO for short. If we break down the English sentence, I ate apple, we can see that the subject I is presented first, followed by the verb ate, and then finally the object apple is positioned last. This is the basic word order for sentences in English.
Now, let's compare the same sentence, I ate an apple, in Japanese. 私がリンゴを食べました。Like before, let's remove the particles to keep it simple. So we're just left with the words. If we break down the Japanese sentence, we get the subject, 私, meaning I. Then comes the object, リンゴ, meaning apple. And finally, we have the verb, 食べました, meaning ate. The word order for Japanese then is subject, object, verb, or SOV for short.
In both languages, the subject is presented first. In English, though, it's followed by the verb and then the object, compared to the object being first and the verb last in Japanese. The same sentence in Japanese is essentially I apple ate, subject first, then object, and verb last, SOV. This is the basic word order for sentences in Japanese.
Okay, let's move on to the next section.
English is what is called a subject-prominent language. This simply means that the subject is slightly more important than other components in the sentence. It's the key piece of information other components in the sentence relate to. Who is doing the action is slightly more important than what is being done or which object it's being done to in English. If we had to slowly remove pieces of information from a sentence while trying to keep its essence intact, logically we would do so in order of least important to most important. If we were to omit the subject, we would get ate an apple, which sounds strange. On the other hand, if we were to omit the object instead, the sentence would become I ate. Even though in each instance we omitted a piece of information, the reason I ate sounds less strange is because we've yet to break any grammatical rules, and so there's still potential for the sentence fragment to become a complete sentence and to become grammatically correct. Since the latter is logical, this indicates that the subject is more important than the object in English. The same would have been true if we had omitted the verb. Since the subject is the integral component in the sentence, this makes English a subject-prominent language.
Japanese, on the other hand, is a topic-prominent language. Unlike English, the focus of each Japanese sentence is the topic, not the subject. Essentially, the ate an apple portion, リンゴを食べました, is the main focus of the sentence, where I is deemed less important and can be omitted.
In fact, if it's obvious what the subject is, or if it's already been established, it's quite normal to omit the subject from the conversation altogether in Japanese. Let's look at this aspect in a bit more detail. More often than not, if you wanted to say, I ate an apple in Japanese, you would not say,
私がリンゴを食べました.
Instead, you would more likely say, apple ate in Japanese.
リンゴを食べました.
Since Japanese is a topic-prominent language, the information to be shared is the act of eating the apple. Less important is the subject, which is omitted altogether. Most Japanese sentences are constructed and spoken like this in real life. In most situations, such as a one-on-one conversation, it's clear that the person who's speaking is the subject. In cases where it's obvious who or what the subject is, it's almost guaranteed that the subject will be omitted. And so you're left with
リンゴを食べました.
On the other hand, when it's unclear who or what the subject is, or if you wanted to place emphasis on the subject, like if you wanted to declare from a group of people that it was you who ate the apple, then you would include the subject.
私がリンゴを食べました.
But more often than not, most sentences spoken in daily Japanese conversation can be spoken without including the subject at all, particularly if that subject is you.
箱を開けました. 電車で帰りました.
Knowing this, we can easily express any simple action in Japanese using just the object and the verb. Try to create the sentence, I ate a hot dog, from these sets of words.
食べました. ホットドッグを.
Okay, got it? The object goes first, so let's put hot dog here. And the verb goes last, so let's put ate at the end. Finally, we connect them using the appropriate particle. And that's it.
ホットドッグを食べました.
Which means, I ate a hot dog in Japanese.
ホットドッグを食べました.
You can create any basic sentence like this in Japanese if you simply know the word for the object and the verb in Japanese. Well done! Let's wrap up this lesson by recapping what we've learned. In this lesson, you learned that Japanese sentences are formed using a subject-object-verb, or SOV, word order. The most important aspect of Japanese sentences is not the subject of the sentence, but the topic. Most sentences spoken in Japanese will not actually contain a subject, especially if that subject is obvious, like when it's yourself, the speaker. And lastly, you can create basic sentences in Japanese by putting the object first and the verb last. We've covered only the very basics of Japanese grammar. If you're interested in learning more, check out our Learn Basic Japanese video series. In that course, we teach you useful phrases while covering the fundamentals of Japanese grammar. In the next lesson, we'll introduce you to the basics of Japanese writing. See you in the next lesson. Bye!
Bye!
Hi, welcome to Introduction to Japanese. My name is Alicia, and I'm joined by...
Hi everyone, I'm Risa.
In this lesson, you'll learn the basics of Japanese writing. In English, we use one script, the English alphabet, to write. To write in Japanese, however, you will need to use 3 different scripts together.
And they are hiragana, katakana, and kanji. Hiragana is like the basic Japanese alphabet.
Instead of 26 letters, however, we have 46 characters. Each character represents one syllable. These 5 characters, for example, represent the 5 vowels in Japanese.
A, I, U, E, O.
All other characters, except for one, are made up of a consonant and one of these vowels.
Ka, ki, ku, ke, ko, sa, shi, su, se, so.
And so on.
Katakana is almost exactly the same as hiragana. The only difference is that it's written a little differently. A, I, U, E, O, ka, ki, ku, ke, ko. Hiragana is more cursive, while katakana has a lots of sharp corners. The final script is kanji.
Kanji is the use of Chinese characters in Japanese writing. This is because Japanese writing actually originated from China.
Right. A long time ago, Japan only used Chinese characters. Today, we use all 3 scripts together to write Japanese. Unlike hiragana and katakana though, kanji is nothing like an alphabet.
Kanji characters are a special type of character that represent an idea or concept. They act more like entire words than individual letters. And unlike the alphabet, there are thousands and thousands of kanji characters.
Not to mention, there are many different ways you can read them too. So the pronunciation actually changes according to the context.
Okay, now you know that there are 3 different scripts used to write Japanese, but why is this the case? Let's look at each script in a little more detail.
You can think of hiragana as the default script used to write most things in Japanese.
It's the most common of the 3 scripts because it's used to write functional words, including most grammatical particles, such as possessive,
の、私のペン
prepositions,
に、学校にいる
as a subject marker,
は、ジョンは学生です。
and it can also be used to write words that lack a kanji rendition or whose kanji is obscure or considered too difficult for the reader to understand. Additionally, it's used as inflectional endings for adjectives and verbs together with kanji.
見る、押す、白い、古い。
In theory, you could use this script to write everything in Japanese.
For this reason, it's generally best to learn hiragana first. We mentioned before that katakana is almost exactly the same as hiragana. The only difference is that it looks slightly different.
This is the least common of the 3 scripts because it's used to write foreign words and names,
コンピューター、ビール、ロンドン、ジョン、
and onomatopoeic sounds.
ワンワン、ニャン。It's common to learn katakana after you learn hiragana because of their similarities.
The final script is kanji, which is undoubtedly the hardest one of all to learn. Kanji is used to write most words of native Japanese or of historically Chinese origin. This includes most nouns,
人、学校、
the stems of most verbs and adjectives,
見る、行く、赤い、怖い、
and most personal and place names.
田中、ひろこ、東京、大阪。
Learning kanji may be difficult since there are thousands and thousands of them. They are, however, an integral part of Japanese writing. Okay, let's wrap up this lesson by recapping what we've learned.
In this lesson, you learned that there are 3 different scripts used to write Japanese. Hiragana is the most common, and it's used to write functional words and particles. Katakana is used to write foreign words and names. And kanji is used to write native Japanese words, or words of Chinese origin.
We've covered the very basics of Japanese writing.
Check out our Kantan-kana series to learn the hiragana and katakana scripts that we talked about in this lesson.
And check out our Introduction to Kanji series, where we teach you the quickest and most effective way to tackle learning kanji. In the next lesson, you'll be entering Japanese Boot Camp, where you'll learn useful beginner phrases to get you speaking Japanese right away. See See you in the next lesson. Bye!
Bye!
Hi! Welcome to Introduction to Japanese. My name is Alicia, and I'm joined by...
Hi everyone, I'm Risa.
In this lesson, we'll focus on teaching you the most useful Japanese words and phrases for absolute beginners.
Make sure you're repeating the words out loud after I say the examples.
Are you ready? Let's get started. Bar none, the best phrase to learn when studying a new language is one that expresses gratitude and appreciation. If you had to learn only one single phrase, this would be it.
We taught you this phrase in the very first lesson. Do you remember what it was? Arigato. It means thank you. Arigato.
Keep repeating after Risa until you get it.
Arigato.
Your turn.
Arigato. Arigato.
Do you remember this character here? We talked about it in lesson 2. Even though this character is transcribed as an R, don't pronounce it like an English R. Listen to how Risa pronounces this sound.
Ri.
It sounds like a mixture between an R and an L sound.
Ri.
Another way of pronouncing this sound is to think of the quick tapping motion your tongue makes as it strikes the top gum ridge in words like ladder or butter.
Ri.
Altogether, it's...
Arigato.
Okay, one last time.
Arigato.
The next phrase we'll teach you is perhaps the second most useful of all phrases. It's to apologize or to excuse yourself.
We taught you this phrase in lesson 2. Do you remember what it was? Sumimasen, and it means excuse me or I'm sorry. Sumimasen.
Use this phrase when you want to grab a waiter's attention or when you're hustling through the busy streets of Tokyo.
Sumimasen.
Your turn.
Sumimasen.
Imagine you're on the street and you want to stop someone to ask them for directions. What do you say?
Sumimasen.
Okay, one last time.
Sumimasen.
Now you can say thank you, excuse me, and I'm sorry in Japanese. Let's move on. Asking where something is an incredibly important and useful phrase to learn. You're going to need this when asking where the bathroom, the train station, or where the hotel is. To ask where something is, put the name of the place or location first, and then add
はどこですか?
For example, if you want to ask, where is the bathroom?
トイレはどこですか?
For the train station, it'll be
駅はどこですか?
and so on. You can ask where something is by simply adding
はどこですか? は marks the place as the subject of the sentence. どこ means where. This is a polite word that roughly translates to is, and ka marks the sentence as a question. You can kind of think of it like a question mark in Japanese.
Altogether, it's
はどこですか?
your turn.
はどこですか? はどこですか?
Now let's teach you some vocabulary so that you can use it in the sentence. Here are some of the most common words you'll need to learn.
トイレ、
Bathroom.
トイレ。トイレはどこですか?
Next,
駅、
station.
駅。駅はどこですか?
If you ask someone this question, they'll direct you to the closest train station. If you'd like to ask where a specific train station is, like Tokyo Station, for example, simply place the location before station.
駅、東京駅。東京駅はどこですか?
Next,
ホテル、
hotel.
ホテル。ホテルはどこですか?
For a specific hotel, do the same as before. Just place the name before hotel.
ホテル、ヒルトンホテル。ヒルトンホテルはどこですか?
Next,
コンビニ、
convenience store.
コンビニ。 コンビニはどこですか?
You can substitute almost anything and simply add
はどこですか?
to ask where something is in Japanese. In this final lesson, you learned how to say thank you, excuse me, I'm sorry, and to ask where something is in Japanese. And in this series, we introduced you to the basics of Japanese pronunciation, grammar, writing, and more. Let's conclude with some parting advice from Risa and listen to some of her tips on how to learn Japanese from a native Japanese perspective.
The best way to learn Japanese, particularly if you want to improve your communication skills, is to watch and study contemporary Japanese videos. That's because we often use expressions that aren't necessarily introduced in grammar textbooks in daily conversation. The biggest mistake that I see learners make is watching and mimicking what they see and hear in anime, and to a lesser degree Japanese dramas. A lot of the expressions used in anime are not commonly used in daily conversation, as their reactions are often exaggerated. The same thing happens in Japanese dramas too, but to a lesser extent. One such example is the use of domo as a casual way to say thanks. We often see this in comedic shows, and so a lot of learners are saying domo, but in fact, it is rarely used even amongst friends. It should generally be avoided. Watching contemporary videos, such as our videos here at JapanesePod101.com, will ensure that you're learning real, applicable Japanese in the fastest and the most effective way.
You've reached the end of this course, Introduction to Japanese, but it's only the beginning of your journey to Japanese fluency. Where do you go from here? Try our innovative Japanese series where we teach you beginner vocab and even more useful phrases, or check out any of our other video series. We have many different categories for you to choose from. Good luck as you continue learning Japanese, and I'll see you in another video. Bye!
Bye!
Want to speed up your language learning? Take your very first lesson with us. You'll start speaking in minutes and master real conversations. Sign up for your free lifetime account. Just click the link in the description.